We are multiplying complex numbers. So let's go ahead and start off with the foundation of complex numbers, which is what happens when we have I squared, I cubed, I to the fourth, I to the fifth. And then it keeps on going. And let's talk about that. Well, what is I? I is really the square root of -1. Usually we're not allowed to have negatives under the square root. What that does is it throws it into a new dimension or new plane called the imaginary plane. And we would usually represent the imaginary plane as the real part and the complex part, but we can go ahead and worry about that later. All right. Okay. Well, I can't help it. There's our real part. That's the real number line. And then the complex part, that would be the number next to I. And then it graphs on a two-dimensional plane. All right. But anyway, let's go ahead and look through these. I squared, that would be like the square root of -1 squared. So you can just build these. It's not too bad. The square and square root undo themselves, and we have -1 is what I squared is equal to. I cubed, you can think about it as the combination between these two. So think about it as I squared times I. What's I squared? -1. What's I? We would just keep it as I. So we would say negative I for that one. I to the fourth, you can think about it as I squared times I squared, which is going to be -1 times -1, which is equal to 1. And then I to the fifth is like I to the fourth times I, which would be I to the fourth is 1. 1 times I is I. And then the key here is the pattern starts to repeat. So make sure you put a little bit of time, get this in your notes, and try to wrap your head around it because it's real important as you start getting to more advanced problems. So we're asked to simplify the expression to a plus bi form. Notice we have two terms here. Terms are separated by a plus or minus sign. Two terms here separated by a plus or minus sign. So that's your binomial multiplication. There's three ways essentially to kind of deal with this. One of them is called FOIL. First, outside, inside, last. The other one is to distribute. And the last is the box method. All right. So usually at our school, we teach the box method. And I can kind of go over some of the other methods later. We would put each term in components on the box. Fill in each part. So 12 times 8 is 72, 76, 80, 96. 12 times 8i is 96i. And -10i times 8 is -80i. And then 8i times -10i is -80i squared. And then what did I say I squared was? I squared is equal to -1. So this one right here turns into -80 times -1, which turns into 80. All right. So you can never have I to a higher power other than the first power. So notice how all of these simplify, no more exponents on I. So that's a rule, no exponents on I. So all of this turns into 96 plus 80, and we get -80i and plus 96i. All right, got a lot of 96s and 80s here. That looks like 176. And that looks like 16i plus 16i is what I got. So just combine like terms at the end. 176 plus 16i is what I got. Let's see what method they did. Oh, they did the FOIL method. Okay. First, outside, inside, last. And then they combined everything, combined like terms, and simplified. Okay. Let me go ahead and just show you, because there's the FOIL method, first, outside, inside, last. Distribution is a lot like that, but at least you can kind of see it there. So this number right here has to multiply to everything in the other. So that's what parenthesis times parenthesis means. That every part has to multiply to every other part. This 8i has to multiply to every other part too. And that's also the FOIL method. So it kind of links together. So the first times the first, the outside times the outside, inside times the inside, the last times the last. And that's what FOIL kind of represents. But it's basically like distribution. All right. So hopefully this kind of makes sense. And you can see what's going on this. Okay. All right. So all of them are going to be very similar to this. We're just kind of dealing with it. And sometimes I'll even call it the chicken head method. All right. Let's see if the next one's any different. Oh, not the help video. New problem. Same kind of problem. So however you want to do it, we recommend the box method here. Distribution or FOIL works just fine, but you have to keep track of it better.